Trump designates Antifa movement as a terrorist organization. And this is from Newsmax.com. And let's size this up so you can read it if you happen to be watching this on your smartphone. Maybe you can follow along if you'd like to. All right, President Donald Trump on Wednesday announced he was designating the anti-fascist movement Antifa a major terrorist organization, a move that follows last week's assassination of conservative leader Charlie Kirk. Trump posted the declaration on Truth Social while on a state visit to the United Kingdom, hours after attending a state banquet at Windsor Castle. Quote, I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization, Trump wrote, adding that he would strongly recommend that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. The announcement comes amid a heightened crackdown by the administration on groups it says are fomenting political violence. The designation was explicitly tiered by senior officials to the killing of Kirk at a university event, a killing that has intensified partisan pressure in Washington. And authorities say the 31-year-old Kirk was shot while speaking at Utah Valley University last week, and prosecutors charged 22-year-old suspect in the death. Of course, we know that. Let's see. The shooting prompted a flurry of political responses across the spectrum. Legal experts say the move raises immediate and daunting legal questions. There is no established federal mechanism for designating a loose, decentralized political movement such as Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization in the same way the State Department lists foreign terrorist organizations. And just to briefly stop there, yes, and that's the whole point with Antifa. They don't want a leader. They have different chapters, sub-organizations, or whatever you want to call it. But yes, they consider themselves to be decentralized just for that reason, so they can avoid any kind of federal designation and try to weasel out of different prosecutorial standards, anything like that, maybe RICO charges or something along those lines, which is why at the beginning, during my intro, I mentioned that Antifa did not start in the United States. It started in a foreign country, and it's been organized since then. It didn't completely die out. Of course, after World War II was over, I'm sure it fizzled out probably for the most part. But the organization didn't completely go extinct and start up again, at least not that I read, at least. And in the 1980s, it started to gain traction here in the U.S., but it didn't get its start here. So I think that the federal government really could technically classify it as a foreign domestic or a foreign terrorist organization just based on that, where it got its origins. And also, it doesn't only exist in the United States. Antifa is all over Europe. So it's not just based here in the U.S. Yes, pretty much everybody who's in Antifa, they live in the United States, but I mean, that shouldn't make any difference at all. So I don't know if they're going to look into that. I did that with a simple Google search. You'd think that the power of the federal government, that they would at least do a simple Google search to find out, where did Antifa get its start? Oh, not in the United States. So I guess we'll just have to see if they end up taking it that route. So, past fact-checking and legal analysis have noted presidents cannot unilaterally declare a domestic political movement a terrorist group in the way foreign organizations are designated. Any attempt to treat a U.S.-based leaderless movement as a formal terrorist organization would likely face prompt court challenges. Again, label it domestic or label it foreign, because it is a foreign terrorist organization. Congressional Republicans have for months pushed measures to classify Antifa-linked conduct as domestic terrorism. A House resolution introduced earlier this year urged the Justice Department to prosecute Antifa-linked violence and called for a legislative pathway to treat certain Antifa conduct as terrorism. But analysts say the resolution does not create the statutory tools necessary for a formal domestic terrorist designation. Administration officials signaled they may pursue multiple avenues beyond a formal label: expanded criminal prosecutions, tighter scrutiny of nonprofit and donor networks, and potential use of racketeering statutes to go after coordinated campaigns of violence. Well, see, the issue is when they show up, apparently they organize in secret. They claim they don't organize, but obviously they organize because they just show up as a really large group somewhere. So they're organizing somewhere, whether if it's on Telegram or somewhere where they're hiding behind anonymity online. Either way, they're organizing somewhere. Probably might be difficult to get in, but probably not. I mean, this is the left after all. So maybe they could get infiltrated into the organization if they haven't already. I'm assuming probably the FBI or other, federal law enforcement. They probably have had insiders in Antifa for a long time. Can't really say that 100% for sure. But the problem with Antifa is that they all wear the same outfits, which is purposely done. They cover up their faces, purposely done, so they can't be identified on camera. And they, as a group, smash things, break things, terrorize, and it makes it impossible to charge any individual in a court of law. So I'm assuming they could charge the entire organization. That's probably where the whole RICO thing might come about. So I don't know if they are able to label it or designate it as a foreign terrorist organization. Well, then that gives the federal government a whole lot of power to absolutely destroy them. So I guess we'll just have to see. I'm sure there's going to be very plausible arguments stating that it's not a foreign terrorist organization, it's domestic. But look, man, if they've got chapters all over the world and they are operating all over Europe, how are they not a foreign terrorist organization? All you would really have to do is investigate them and just try to find one person who you can 100% definitively say, yes, this person is an Antifa, and they seem to be running the show because a lot of communications are going through this individual, and this individual is talking to other Antifa chapters overseas in the UK or even in France. All they need to do is just connect one individual to an Antifa organization overseas, and how would that not just be a solid foreign terrorist organization? I don't know. But if you know more on that subject, if you're some legal scholar or anything like that, if you feel like elaborating in the comments, I'd really appreciate it, because I only know what I read, and I haven't really read up on a whole lot of how the inner workings of the federal government and terrorism, how they go after it. Not so sure, but I know after 9/11, we gave the federal government a whole lot of power to go after terrorism. Remember that? That was the big federal government buzzword back then. Terrorism, them evildoers. So we'll just have to see, man. Civil liberties groups warn that such strategies risk sweeping up lawful protest activity that could chill protected speech. Could depend. If they throw one rock, round them all up. Maybe they might just take that approach. I do understand that. And a lot of people, ironically, a lot of conservatives will have a problem with that too. If they start rounding up people who didn't do anything, they're just simply protesting, making noise, doing whatever it is they're doing, as long as they're not committing any violence or destroying property, it might be kind of hard to sweep them up. I don't know. Maybe I'm not so sure that this has happened in any of our lifetimes. Probably not my lifetime. I mean, I was born in the 80s. So, I mean, in the 90s, 2000s, I don't think there was any major domestic terrorist organization that operated all over the country that the federal government decided to go after. I mean, nothing that I can think of. So anyway, dozens of liberal nonprofits have already pushed back, accusing the administration of trying to exploit the Kirk killing to criminalize dissent. The announcement is sure to deepen partisan divides. Yeah, I'm sure it will. It's just because the Democratic Party, they're in free fall. They're in heavy damage control. They refuse to own the fact that, in which all Americans know who are paying attention, at least certainly the ones who live in big cities, that the vast majority of violence that's occurring politically is coming straight from the left. And the left exclusively vote Democrat. They sure as shit don't vote Republican, that's for sure, and that's common knowledge. So they can try to dance around that. We've got hundreds, if not over 1,000 different instances of protests that led to violence. And I mean, probably just from 2020 alone, the summer of love. That's what they called it. Summer of love. In the whole damn country, they had city blocks that were on fire. It was crazy. That was the same year when CNN was on the ground. I think it was in Minnesota. And they're like, it's a mostly peaceful protest while the entire block is burning down behind them. The entire background was just covered in fire. And they're like, it's mostly peaceful. So that's the scumbaggery that we got to deal with. Anyway, supporters hailed the move as a necessary response to politically motivated violence. Opponents described it as an overreach that threatens constitutional protections. Legal scholars say a near-term showdown in federal court is likely if the administration follows through with sanctions, investigations of donors, or expanded criminal charges tied to loosely affiliated activists. Yes, so you do have to keep in mind, these donors and people who are financially backing Antifa, they're most likely very powerful people. They probably know a hell of a lot of Democrats. They, of course, probably shake hands on a regular basis behind closed doors. So, the swamp runs deep, man. It's not a shallow swamp. It's a deep swamp indeed. And the establishment, Big Brother, whatever you want to call it, it's a thing. And a lot of these donors are, I know the Soros group, they're up in the billions of dollars, and I'm sure there's quite a few other billionaires who quietly fund money to nonprofit organizations who fund this shell organization that's a nonprofit, who funds this organization, who funds Antifa. I'm sure it's a hell of a paper trail. I'm sure, look, they've been doing this for years, if not decades, funding stuff like this. So I'm sure that they've got this method down to a science at this point, and it might take a really long time for them to actually get down to the bottom of it. But these days in the 21st century, everything's got a paper trail. Even though I'm sure in some degree with Antifa, I hear a lot of them sleep on people's couches and a lot of them don't work. And like, this is all they do is just cause trouble and try to burn down the system any way they can. So it might be hard to track a lot of them. Maybe they only deal in cash and they don't have any established credit and stuff like that. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see where it goes. White House officials said they will brief Congress and law enforcement partners this week on next steps. Analysts note that designations tied to domestic movements historically collide with First Amendment protections and the structural limits of executive authority, making the practical effect of the announcement uncertain unless backed by new legislation or narrow evidence-based prosecutions. Yes, if it's a domestic terrorist organization, that would be correct. But again, if they go the foreign terrorist organization route, which I think they would, or at least they could. I think they could, because it didn't start in the United States. Has no roots in the United States. It has its roots in Germany right before freaking World War II, when they were pushing back against Hitler's regime. So, all right. So anyway, that's all that we've got for this article. That'll be linked in the description. If there was anything I happened to skip over, I don't think I did. Looks like there was a quote here from Trump, or a link at least. You want to listen to the article? Here's a video here. Not so sure. Usually these videos they tend not to be related to the article, but sometimes they are. I don't know, but whatever. The link will be down in the description, newsmax.com. So moving on to the next one from RT. So every time I say RT, I always take it with a grain of salt. I didn't really see a whole lot outside of Caroline Leavitt and the White House with regard to the Antifa thing in the government, in federal government circles. The gray badges, those gray badges. So that's about all I saw, and the White House had a couple of other ones. So I decided to look outside of the government just a little bit. Came across this from RT. Netherlands follows Trump's lead, declares Antifa a terrorist organization. Antifa leftists joined the ranks of Hamas and ISIS. Motion brought by Thierry Baudet's anti-establishment FVD party. And I can't read the language, so I'm just assuming what they're saying is true. I guess if you can read that, I don't know. I'm counting more red dots than green dots, so that kind of confuses me. So I don't know if the Netherlands, maybe they have like 4 or 5 political parties, and if only like a certain percentage vote green, then it's good to go. Not so sure. I don't know how their politics works. And RT was replying to this. We're going to do a big thing with respect to Antifa, a sick group. Trump's vowed to designate Antifa major terror organization. This is on Fox News.
Do you believe that there is a vast terrorist movement in the United States that people need to be aware of? And is it responsible for Charlie Kirk's killing, for the attempts on your life, for these CEOs that we saw in New York City? Is there something people need to understand?
You never know, and we'll find out maybe. But in the meantime, we're going to do a big thing with respect to Antifa. It's a sick group. Very, very sick group. We have a lot of things. They love burning the American flag. I think it's terrible that they burn the American flag. We're going
not illegal.
And we're saying it incites riots, and therefore you go to jail for 1 year if you burn the American flag. That's different than Antifa, but Antifa burns a lot of American flags.
I'm sure that's getting challenged in court.
Because
he's got that executive order in stand.
Got us on the American flag. The courts have ruled free speech, so we're going to go on an incitement of riots. I saw it the other day. I saw it the other day on your show. They have an American flag, and a guy starts burning
incitement of riots.
And the people went
interesting.
Crazy
They certainly do that.
And they ended up rioting all over the place. So we think that's a reason also. And we're going into the courts with that, which is incitement. Antifa causes tremendous incitement, and the things they say and the things they do are horrible. So we're going to find out.
Yeah, the only problem that they're going to have is the ability to charge individuals. Now, if they do enough investigating, they probably could find direct evidence of individuals being members of Antifa. They might be able to tie that in. It's just going to be hard to prove, were they at this event on this exact day? However, if they're all carrying smartphones around, it may not be as hard to figure out as you might think. Just because they don't have their face on camera, they might be able to follow their movements through GPS. That's another possibility too. I mean, it sounds like it would be a very complex and very drawn out investigation because there's a whole bunch of them. There's a lot of Antifa members. However, the Department of Homeland Security, how much money they got? Like $300 or $350 billion in funding from the One Big Beautiful Bill. So they just got an enormous amount of money. So they've got plenty of funds to go after basically anybody they want, really. And I don't know, man. We'll just have to see legislation getting passed. That would certainly be something nice to see. I really doubt that. That's why I always get so frustrated with Republicans, because they basically do jack shit for the most part. They really don't do anything. It's really frustrating. I mean, Democrats are constantly trying to steamroll all kinds of shit through Congress, but Republicans are just constantly just acting like the speed bump. That's about all they're really doing. Not to say they're not doing anything. They are passing stuff. Of course, they're passing stuff. It's just, I don't know, man. I think you know what I'm talking about.